What does education do to somebody? When we say quality education, we are looking at many things, from the standards of teachers that you have, their motivation, the curriculum itself. What are you teaching? We are also looking at the students. What do they take out of the education system? So at the end, what products do we bring out of the education? When I went to a government college, all of the students coming in by merit, we all wrote what they call common entrance, and we didn't know anybody. So you see that your colleague could have a father as the manager or this a managing director in CBN, while you are just from the village. But today's education is more like classified. The private schools are taking over. They are flagging the WAEC results and JAM results, and they are profit driven. Today, a private school who claims to have standards takes teachers that they just pay peanuts. And if you don't want it, someone else wants that job.
As young people in the 90s, the children of nobody will come into the same class, the same hostel with people who are everything you can imagine. But if you look at what is happening today in Nigeria, I don't know whether we'll just blame only government or including the people, like I said, but there is a sharp divide.
Even this period, when you go back in the 90s, when we have a better quality of education in Nigeria, it doesn't look like we produced people or graduates who were able to invent things, who were able to convert their head knowledge into application to get things going.
The kind of education that was handed down to Africa, not just Nigeria in this case, is for you to memorize and not to produce anything. Some of us have heard about school is scam, and even JAM standard in Nigeria has dropped. Today is how crazy you are that determines how famous, or everybody's chasing fame. We recently heard about the Olodo uprising, where the only thing people consume, especially our younger people.
Most universities are just glorified secondary schools. If someone in China, for example, finds how a motorcycle can run on water, they give him a PhD. In Nigeria, you have so many PhDs. We just after the paper qualification, so many PhDs that have not produced anything to write home about. What just annoys me more with the Nigerian system is when you talk about empowerment, start hearing of bead making.
The president himself can call his wife in front of a serious meeting.
My question is, if we make this bead, who is buying them? But there's a kind of education that will make a young person so curious that he thinks there's a water in his village, he can harness that water for electricity. I will not be party to any kind of education that box someone up and say you must just keep to what you have. So let us have systems. Let us have a system in place.
How can we build this system on a faulty foundation?
This all boils down to the kind of education that we have. Our curriculum has to be changed. Our schools have to be properly funded. The kind of research that is done here is not done at home. You can't blame. We have the brightest of minds. We have the best of people. It's just the environment that's lacking. And it comes from the government. How do you put 5%? Imagine a household that you put 5% of your salary for education. Can you pay one person school fees? 5%.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Glasscast Podcast. Your podcast, my podcast, our podcast. Thank you so much for being valued members of our team, our subscribers, our followers. We thank you so much, because if not for you, we wouldn't be here. We thank you for your engagement, for your criticisms, for your suggestions. And today, as part of your suggestion on popular demand, we have a team of experts in the house who will be looking at a very, very fundamental topic today in the house. We are talking about education in Nigeria, the standard, the quality, the past, the present, the future. Why do we have low quality standard in Nigeria? Why are we producing educated illiterates? Why do we have the Olodo uprising? What is happening? The budget, how much are we budgeting for education in Nigeria? What are we producing? What's the quality of teachers? What quality of students do we have in our schools? I don't want to take too much of your time. We have very, able hands that would do justice to the topic today. And I want to introduce a fairly familiar face to Glasscast. We call him Pastor Chris. He's a pastor of Glasscast. Pastor Chris is here with us. He's very passionate about mentoring young ones, and education is part of his passion to train our young boys, our young girls, to make them better fathers and better mothers in the future. And to my immediate left, I have a seasoned professor, an experienced educationist, an expert in the field, in the person of Professor Princewill Odum, I would tell you, get a bucket of your popcorn, a glass of water, a glass of wine, and so on. I know the World Cup is going on now, but Nigeria is unfortunately not part of it. That's part of the education we are talking about. We are not teaching people the right thing. So we are missing out on so many things.
Yeah.
So sit back after listening to us in our comment section, put suggestions on how we can train people better in Nigeria, in sports, in arts, in skills, in technology, in science, in everything all around. And we'll take it up from there and we'll continue to educate our people and bring engaging topics and insightful discussions into the house. I don't want to take too much of your time. I will straight into the discussion. Prof, I want you to, you are a man of stellar CV, many accolades. I just want you to introduce yourself briefly to our listeners.
Okay, Princewill Odum is my name. Currently at the University of Glasgow, where I lecture remote sensing and GIS, Geographic Information System. My background is geography and remote sensing. And I started far back in the government college in Benue State called Government College Makurdi. And that was the foundation of everything that I have built over these years, the kind of education that I was able to pick up from Unity schools.
Thank you so much. Let me fire the first question. I know Pastor is bubbling with questions and ideas. When we talk about quality education, what does it look like and what does it sound like when we talk about quality education?
Quality education should be more of what the intended learning outcomes or the final output that we are looking forward to. What does education do to somebody? Education prepares somebody for life, prepares him for responsibility, prepares him for creativity, for productivity, and to be a very good citizen in future. So when I say quality education, we are looking at many things, from the standards of teachers that you have, their motivation, the curriculum itself. What are you teaching? We are also looking at the students. What do they take out of the education system? So it's not just one thing. It's a mix of many variables that produce what we call quality education. But at the end, what product do we bring out of the education? That's what makes it really quality.
Thank you so much for that. In terms of the quality of education we have in Nigeria, the very fundamental thing we should have is the teachers who would impact this knowledge to the students and bring that quality that we are talking about in Nigeria. Presently, what is your assessment of that?
It's okay for persons, anybody to say the standard of education is falling, but we need to find out all the factors and all the variables. For example, I went to a government college, a school that had all of the students coming in by merit. We all wrote what they call common entrance, and we didn't know anybody. So you see that your colleague could have a father as the manager or this a managing director in CBN, while you are just from the village.
A child of a farmer.
Yeah, so when we went to dining, we saw people place their food, their dishes to eat. We had people who had stainless steel. We had people who had plastic plates. We even had someone who came with a calabash as far back as then, because everybody was received in that kind of education. But today's education is more like classified. The private schools are taking over. They are flagging the WAEC results and JAM result, which is their marketing strategy, and they are profit driven. Is that profit that is negating the real education we are talking about? So we talk about teachers. I had teachers that were in staff quarters. We had the big staff quarters. We had Anand Raja, an Indian man.
Yeah, we had a lot of white people. Mr. Visaga Paroma, Ananda Raja, we had Mrs. Pelenge. That's what we used to go.
She was a Filipino. So you see, these were people who were seasoned teachers that had the staff quarters, electricity, water. They don't bother about anything. They just had time for us. But today, a private school who claims to have standards takes teachers that they just pay peanuts. And if you don't want it, someone else wants that job. And they're just after profit. Some are really after excellence. We cannot just have a carpet statement, but the question is, what's the quality of the education we have? I think it's falling. It's really falling.
All right. Thank you so much, Princewill. You've said something that really hit home. We cannot exonerate government in all of this. That's the truth. We've got the citizen or the office of the citizens. Do they have their own responsibility? Yes. But I can tell you clearly, it's a good thing that we're speaking with someone like you who have seen it back home, and now you're still in the education sector in the developed world. I'm talking about the University of Glasgow, where you currently lecture. Now, the Unity School, like you rightly mentioned, the federal government colleges of this world, the government college, the likes of the government college Makurdi, which you mentioned, which also, interestingly, was where our path crossed. As young people in the 90s, the children of nobody will come into the same class, the same hostel with people who are everything you can imagine. The government college Makurdi, which we call Mobites today, Makurdi Old Boys Association, when you leave, is one of the biggest schools in the Middle Belt, in the entire Benue, Plateau, and all of those, and Kogi. That school has provided, or rather has brought about people who are governors. The former governor of Benue State was an old boy. The former governor of Nasarawa State, and I don't want to start mentioning him, but at least we know that we've got about 4 to 5 governors and people who have also been ministers. People, some of them are set, some is set before us, some, in that school, we had everybody on the same field or almost in the same hostel. Everybody enjoyed. But if you look at what is happening today in Nigeria, I don't know whether we'll just blame only government or including the people, like I said, but there is a sharp divide.
Okay, Pastor Chris, let me say something. Even this period, when you go back in the 90s, when we have a better quality of education in Nigeria, it doesn't look like we produced people or graduates who were able to invent things, who were able to convert their head knowledge into application to get things going.
Again, that is the system.
So it's not like it started today. Could it be that the kind of education that was handed over to Nigeria by the colonial masters used to train them as clerks and servants?
Well, sorry, before the Prof goes in, I'm going to say something. I've listened and read a lot of things that it looks like the kind of education that was handed down to Africa, not just Nigeria in this case, is for you to memorize and not to produce anything. You just learn and produce it on the day of exam. And some of those things ends there. Why I'm worried about is the kind of content, including the educational content that we consumed then and now. Today, I don't know, some of us have heard about School is Calm. At some point, he took the waves. And I'm also aware that recently, even JAMB standard in Nigeria has dropped. We used to say 250 in those days. Now I think it's as low as 150. Crazy. So even though we're being taught to memorize and write exams, we still have better people or more quality people that can do greater things than what is happening today. Today is how crazy you are that determines how famous or everybody is chasing fame. We recently heard about the Olodo uprising, where the only thing people consume, especially our younger people. I'm glad you mentioned that. I am very passionate about mentoring younger people. Some of us have been privileged to probably leave Nigeria, and then what content or what are you giving to these people, these younger ones? What are they going to be like? Now that we know our problem, which is just study to memorize and write exams, now we're thinking, how can we put into practice those things we're being taught? And that, again, that's where...
Prof, let me come to you. We started from the secondary education in Nigeria. And, in life, when you are young, you are taught to the letters of the alphabet. From there, you make your word. From words, you write a sentence. From sentence, you write a paragraph. And move into primary school, prepares you go into secondary school and get into the university. What is happening in our universities now in terms of the quality of education? We've talked about the secondary part of it, which is the building block.
Most universities are just glorified secondary schools.
That's the word, glorified secondary
the kind of output we expect we don't get them and you don't blame the students. For example, most of the university claims to have accreditation. Who does the accreditation? The Nigeria University Commission. There's an accreditation, there's 100% accreditation. The next day you start hearing that the university does not have facility, ASU is going on strike. So who is deceiving who? If there's a body that gives you 100% accreditation that your work is to the standard that we have, and the next day the same professors are saying that we don't have facilities. With what facilities
did they get
the accreditation?
Yeah, but they facilitated the accreditation, the professors in the university, because they are also part of the accreditation. You can't do accreditation without the professors in the university or in the faculty.
Both the infrastructure and the human capital.
And the human capital. So how would they today facilitate the accreditation and tomorrow go on strike? Who is to blame?
You know, when we're discussing, I talked about degrees up to PhD by innovation. If someone in China, for example, finds how a motorcycle can run on water, they give him a PhD. But today in Nigeria, you have so many PhDs. I'm sorry to say I'm also a PhD holder, but so many PhDs that have not produced anything to write home about. We're just after the paper qualification. And the paper is not really helping us. Now, the good thing is, when we talk about before and the present, we say before, like we always talk about good old days, education was sound, we had good workshop, we had laboratories, we had the fish pond, right? Yeah. We had chemistry lab. Our chemistry, we go to the lab, we don't even have it in class because you have to do all the practicals and all of that. Physics, poultry farm, all of that should be productive. Even if those things are now on a low volume or reducing. The good thing is that in this generation, there is what we call the digital literacy, access to knowledge, access to information. But there's a difference between access to knowledge, access to information, and productivity or creativity. The more these people have everything on their phones, the less productive we have become. And the more reliance we have been on this on consumption, no production.
No output.
So we should look more into what we can do, what problems we can solve using the education that we get, rather than just about getting a certificate. For example, you have a department of fisheries. Have they been able to provide enough fish for that university campus, for that local government, for that state, for that community? When in countries like Netherlands, a university will tell you that they produce rice enough for export, not just for their local consumption. So if we don't go, but how do you now move from the consumption to production? He talked about government. What's been government's education budget in all these years? 5%. 6%. I think the highest in the last 10 years should be 2017, which was 7%. After that, you have 5% for budget. So I think the whole curriculum will have to be changed. What was laid down to us by our colonial masters is to prepare us to be slaves, to work in offices. There are sometimes when I'm lecturing today, I tell the students, let's meet outside under the tree and we sit down and learn. You don't have to sit in rows and columns like factories, so that we can see how creativity can come in. So we should look beyond this paper and look into what you can produce. If Chinese can study the Igbo apprenticeship system, and if US can study and implement the Igbo apprenticeship system, where you learn practically under somebody,
4 years, 5 years.
To the extent that I had a friend that was recruited from here, China, to go and teach Igbo so that they can be into the system of the main customers they have, the productive people that they think. Then what is wrong with Nigeria? Why can't we really have a functional education?
Prof, you've taken me into an area that I didn't anticipate. we'll get into that place.
That's part of it.
I heard that, you know, there is a proverb in my place said, if you don't know where the rain started beating you, you won't know where you will stop. And a lot of times, if you don't know your history, you wouldn't know how to solve the problem, the mistakes you made, things you did very well in the past, and things you ought to do well in the future. Yeah. In the Nigeria academic curriculum, history
has been expunged
so from crazy. There. And a lot of things, we are missing out on that. What do you think is the impact of that particular step in expunging history from Nigerian curriculum?
Because if you don't know your past, you can't get to the future. You do not know where you are going. You need to know where you are coming from and where you are going. For example, if you tell us our past and we begin to know that once upon a time, 1 naira was equals to 2 pounds. 1 naira was equals to
1
1 at a point.
1 yeah.
Yeah.
No, not 1. It was $1 to 50 kobo.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So if we get that information of the past, it makes us angry and say, why am I now spending 1,500 naira to
get $1? Mm-hmm. In fact, sorry, to add to what you have said, it's not just that it's been expunged. It is going so bad that even the people that are meant to tell the younger ones about the history are no longer interested in the history.
There's another twist to it, which has to do with our rich resources. I know today is not the time to talk about that, but if you don't keep us into consumption, if you don't keep us in the state where we are, there will not be an effective extraction. If you make people to think about what to do with steel, Ajakuta will have to come up, because when they get such research and they get such breakthrough, they'll say, where do I get the steel? And start making engine blocks. We start developing our own cars. If you get people to know how, not just to use the latest iPhone. It's not about using the latest iPhone.
Consumption.
It's about how to produce that kind of phone. If you can produce that, then all the resources that we have, the lithium we should have used for batteries that are all insecurity in Africa, in Nigeria, that's one of my current research, are fueled by the resources that are there. Point to anywhere there is a resources, there will be crisis. Because during crisis, you can't give account for resources. So our education system has been designed by whosoever handed it to us in such a way that to keep us down so that we cannot be productive. We'll just be consumers. So I think the curriculum, I'm still hammering on the curriculum. We need to change the curriculum. We need to look beyond this remembering and
memorizing exams.
We should move on. Go up the ladder of the Bloom taxonomy that talks about analysis, evaluation, and creativity. Not in the lower echelon of Bloom the taxonomy where you just talk about remembering and recall to go and write exam to pass. So this thing is deep, and our leaders have not got to understand it to the extent that they now send their kids abroad and leave the people. But Nigeria can be great again. Nigeria education system can still revamp if we all sit up and think about who we are producing, what we are producing, and what is really quality education.
Let me go back to the issue of history. I wasn't born then, but I read in history. There was a civil war in Nigeria, 1967 to 1970. And during this period of civil war, within a short time, the people from the Southeast, the Biafra Republic, they were able to develop incredible technologies. The Ogbunigwe, the bomb, built aircraft overnight.
Oh my goodness.
And were able to do all these things with very limited PhD numbers or masters or educational qualification. Do you think that this can be replicated, or even with the structure Nigeria has? We've done this kind of education for years. Is there anything that could learn from the Igbos or the Biafrans then that made them, execute that war for 3 years, even with the external support from the Western wars for Nigeria? They were able to withstand and fight for 3 years, developing technologies overnight, bombs, they call it Ogbunigwe then, doing a lot of things, building runways overnight, landing aircrafts, pilots springing up from here and there.
Necessity, they say, is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
I think it's because we have all other options today to import. We have all the options to get from outside and to be consumers. That is
because we're lazy too.
Not lazy. I think it is a systemic issue. It's not about laziness. It's a system. Yeah, and the system has to talk about the kind of governance that we have. I didn't want to go offensive, but the current Nigerian president is using a beast, the same car that American president used. Why other countries are asking Inosumotos to provide vehicles for their presidential fleets? So when we rely on these people, we will never grow. Our industries will not flourish.
Yeah.
Because we rely on these people. And that is my problem with this generation, because this generation have access to knowledge, but critical thinking problem,
to information,
the intelligence is not as I expect, because we are more of consumers. Nyash is something that has become so pronounced on the internet until they had to add it to the English dictionary recently. Yes,
I heard that.
That's
what was selling. But if we have people who are looking creatively, we are not consuming this rubbish. If you go to China and some developed countries, their TikTok, you will never see somebody twerking.
It's not for comedy. It's for productivity. It's for pure technology and productivity. Meanwhile, if you flip to that of Africa, I mean, you
see what they're keeping us busy.
Nigeria, comedy, skits.
It's Gomorrah in Nigeria.
So now the government have a lot to do. I think it's from, like Buhari will say, from top to bottom. From top to bottom means the solutions to start from top to bottom. How are we patronizing this? When I was growing up, the kind of education we had was, they would point to somebody in the quarters, government quarters we're living, and say, if that man gives you sweet biscuit or anything, don't take, because the source of his money is not known. It's
questionable, yeah.
It's not even that he's doing anything bad.
Just that we don't know.
He has bought 2 cars
in such a short time,
in such a short time. So if he gives you anything, don't take until he explains his source of money.
Now that's talking about our values, our value system in the country. We can't separate that from this education now that you've mentioned. And you went to a part that is also quite sensitive, talking about our leadership and the way they are leading the country. People have come to realize that the most important thing is to stay either famous and to be rich, irrespective of how you did it. I don't know how we got this bad. I don't know how we left from, you just mentioned in estates, back home, both when you go home in the villages, when we go home for Christmas, for instance, if you're someone that was not known to have probably served your master, talking about the Igbo culture, for those that were doing, or somebody that has gone to school, that has got a job, you can't be seen in the village sharing money. You can't be seen. But today, it is the order of the day. The value system is going every day.
Prof, let me pick on a point you mentioned, very important point. Talked about President Tinubu. I don't want to use the word Dr. Eze uses. I forbid that from my mouth. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So he drives a beast, the same car President of America drives, while other countries are requesting production of some vehicle
for their presidential fleet.
For their presidential fleet. And when you look at in developed world, UK, America, Canada, Japan, and all those other countries, there is a huge collaboration between the schools and the industry.
Tech industry.
The industry. Be it finance, be it the tech, or there is a huge collaboration with them. They call it year in industry. In fact, the other day I went for my daughter's option evening, where they guide them on how to select courses and the ones they want to do.
Yeah.
And their form teacher told them that recruiters, companies don't go out to just recruit fresh graduates. That whatever they are doing, they should go to make sure they get apprenticeship, internship with companies, organizations, and start with them. And that is where they will learn the practical skills. And, when they finish, they are more than 90% guaranteed, except they perform badly, to be returned in those organizations, because they are learning the hands-on skill. They are learning. They do like 3 days in the university and 2 days in those
the companies,
and the companies pay their fees for the 4 years or 5 years of the course. And those kind of things is completely absent from Nigeria. Even when students finish their school, go for NYSC, they post them. To even get a place of primary assignment is very difficult. So what can start to change in Nigeria for us to get the students or young ones into these industries, to learn the skill, to apply what they are learning in the schools, in the field, in the workshops, and in the stores?
Okay, before he gives response to this, I want to just balance this story a bit because I've been privileged to work as a head of recruitment in an organization, in a financial institution in Nigeria. And I know that though not exactly the way you said it, which is assimilating them from the early stage, but I know we used to go to schools then to do recruitment for our entry-level staff, headhunting. Then we ask for the best. I know it's not the same. I'm just trying to explain so that it doesn't look like Nigeria is actually...
Pastor Chris, I'm going to disagree with you on that. I lived in Nigeria. I schooled in Nigeria also. This issue of headhunting you are talking about is far from what I'm telling you. The issue of us to headhunting, they go to people who have graduated, who made first class, who made 2-1. They don't train them. They pick them from there. I was headhunted.
I totally agree.
I was picked from the camp to work for Access Bank.
So it's not like that. But this one is that as soon as you are finishing your high school, they're already employing you. You don't even know if you are going to be work in the finance. You don't know what is called debit and credit. They train you from that one. But this one you're talking about Nigeria, they look at people who have already read and studied.
I needed to bring that back so that it won't look like a entirely hopeless situation. We've done for entry level.
The point you brought is interaction between town and gown. And I must tell you that the relationship...
Say that again, please.
Interaction between town and gown. That's the gowns you wear for matriculation. School, That's the school, academic institution, and the community that is right now, the relationship between town and gown is a scam. It's promiscuous.
Is it back home in Nigeria or here?
Yeah, back home in Nigeria. It's promiscuous, and it's there's no loyalty. What happened is that the people in the town come to the university begging for honorary doctorate degrees. Doctor of letters to add to their name,
CV.
to add to their CV, so that they'll say, "Oh, I got doctorate degree from this university." While the professors go to rig election because they are all returning officers for all. With all the rest,
you're speaking the truth.
Now let me give you an example. Not because I am biased, but the only professor that stood her ground during the last cycle of election was in Abia State.
Oti.
But what is Oti doing today? Which state is the best performing state in Nigeria?
Abia State.
Correct. No, the two of you are saying
it is what it is. It is.
Yeah, but because there was one professor, somebody in gown that worked in town and used loyalty, not a scam, and made sure that the right things were done. So who is fooling who? So a professor is supposed to be like a general in the army.
Yeah,
that's what a professor is supposed to be in the academic world. That when he speaks, if an economic professor speaks to the president and say, this reform, this policy is going to hurt the economy, the president should keep quiet and listen to the professor and call all the economists, all the accountants, and say, come and let us brainstorm on this. People should guide me because you are the expert in that area.
Yeah.
If a professor of epidemiology says that, okay, there's this new Ebola coming, this is what should happen, the government should listen, not just allocate money based on who they know. So this promiscuous or this very unloyal or very lopsided relationship between town and gown is not really helping. It's a scam. It's a scam because you were talking about calling industries. Where I lecture abroad here, we can go to any industry and invite somebody to come into the university and speak. The person might not even have a degree, but to speak to PhD students because the person has experience. Ladi Kwali that makes clay portraits was picked from Niger State, put on a flight to go to America to go and teach pottery. And she has never seen the four walls of any of the schools that we are talking about. But that was productivity. And most of our portraits today are being 3D scanned and made into something of artifacts that people are buying as art stuff. So that relationship should come in. And the apprenticeship we're talking about is very, very important. What annoys me more with the Nigerian system is when you talk about empowerment, you start hearing of bead making.
Akara frying. That's a very recent one. If the president himself can call his wife in front of a serious meeting, lakara.
My question is, if we make these beads, who is buying them? Can I make a bid and sell to my senator? No. But there's a kind of education that will make a young person so curious that he thinks there's a water in his village, he can harness that water for electricity. My second boy, I asked him, go and fold your clothes. Having removed clothes from the dryer, from washing machine to dryer. To the first thing he did was he went and he was sketching something. And I said, I just told you, go and fold your clothes. I'm not going to repeat it the third time. And he said, Dad, look. I said, what's that? He said he's trying to design a machine that will wash, we dry, and fold. So he's thinking.
Solution.
So
He's
I was going to be angry that he did not obey me at first request, second request, and I was going to shout. But immediately he said that, I went to the room and I said, this is creative thinking. How can I help this young man? I went back to the parlor. I said, grab your remote, go to the TV, go to YouTube and check which inventions they have made. And he said, oh, somebody has already done what is in his mind to do.
You see,
and I told him, okay, now for a place like Nigeria, there's no electricity. Can you do what will not use electricity or that can power itself? Let's push it further. So education should bring about creativity.
You see, talking about creativity, in Nigeria education system, we are expected to be docile, expected not to
take instructions,
not to challenge anybody.
Status quo in any sort. Yeah.
I had a personal experience in the university when I challenged one of our lecturers in the law faculty. The man was teaching us Kama. We were doing companies law. Company law.
Okay.
It was exciting Companies Act of 1969 when we already had the 1990 edition then, or a long time ago. So everybody kept quiet. The second lesson, first, second, third, I called few of my friends. I said, no, this is not right. I'm going to challenge you. I said, no, don't do this, Oscar. This, they will hold you here. You know, this threat is, we'll keep you in university for 7 years. Nobody, you can't even challenge your lecturer. I told him, you know what? If I die, I die. If I perish, I perish. One evening, I raised my hand. Everybody, people around me,
pinching you.
Don't talk. I say, you know what? I'm going to do it. If they're going to sack me, let me be sacked for doing the right thing. And I raised my hand. I asked that question. The lecturer looked in fact, I threw him off balance because what he was apparently doing was he was dictating the note he used in his own.
Oh my God!
time,
in a brown exercise book
many years ago to us. I said, okay, I'll get back to you on this, and the man walked away. And that was how we ended that course for that semester. He didn't come to conclude it. We eventually had to study on our own to read the exam. To write the exam. And that is what happens in Nigeria. Here, even before we got on camera, one of my friends was asking me, I didn't see you in the Igbo class that we attended. I said, well, everything now in my house is negotiated. You know, don't just shut your kids up. They are inquisitive, they ask questions. And that is how it should be. But in Nigeria, we don't do that. Even in science classes, whatever the teacher tells you, if the teacher comes and tells you 2 + 2 is 5, you accept that. And that is not helping us. It's not making us think critically, not making us think analytically. And how far can we continue in that direction?
I think there should be a liberal kind of education. Because really, the only way you can push the frontiers of knowledge is to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
To tell people that this thing can be done in another way or in a better way. And we should allow the next generation to champion that. We should listen to them and see how we can guide them. Because what they are bringing on board is going to be the latest stuff that is different from what we have done. I will not be party to any kind of education that box someone up and say you must just keep to what you have said or just remain at that point of what you are being told without exploring your world. But this all boils down to the kind of education that we have. Can we be able to award degrees? The greatest question many PhDs, masters, and first degree fear during defense is, what is your contribution to knowledge?
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear that question because what's the new thing? Before I award you the PhD, what's the new thing that you are bringing on board? Our curriculum has to be changed. Our schools have to be properly funded. The kind of research that is done here is not done at home. You can't blame. We have the brightest of minds. We have the best of people. It's just the environment that is lacking, and it comes from the government. How do you put 5%? Imagine a household that you put 5% of your salary for education. Can you pay one person's school fees? 5%.
Prof, let me put you on the spot. We have had Nigeria for how many years now? 1914 to 2026 is...
No, we know of 1960. 1914 is amalgamation of the protectorate.
That's actually when the name Nigeria came.
That was when the marriage of strange bedmen started. We've had Nigeria from 1914. Okay, let me narrow it down to from 1960.
Yeah, when we had our independence. Yeah.
And instead of improving, we are, losing standard, losing ground.
Steams are going down every day.
And this madness to do the same thing over and over again.
Hoping to get
and
a different result.
To get a different result.
True.
The federal universities are crumbling. When you see the quality of their hostels, the quality of the structure, schools, in fact, all the professors, no young professor is still in Nigeria now. You are one of them.
It's a story for another day. It's another story for another day.
It's the old ones that feel that we don't want to travel again.
They don't want to go anywhere. Rather, they will send their children still there.
Anyway. And we are expecting things to change. We are expecting miracle. We are praying for miracle to happen. Nigeria, in the way it's structured, and we continue doing that same thing, do you think is workable?
It's not workable. We must ask why.
Okay.
We must ask why it's happening before we can ask how we can solve this problem. Why is it happening? It's happening because whether you like it or not, people say anything, but I will still say it's leadership.
Yeah, centers down to leadership.
It still centers down to leadership. The kind of leaders that we produce, how they are produced, who brings them to power, how they get to power, and what they use, what they borrow for, since they are not going to be alive to pay it. You borrow money today, you have a moratorium for 10 years. After 10 years, you start paying. 30 years. And before that time, you are dead.
You are no longer here.
But there's what we call meritocracy. That has long died. Let me tell you something. I got a job, my first job after NYC at the University of Calabar, not by application. The department sat and said, this guy is good, let's keep him. And they wrote to the VC. Then the departments, I'm sorry I had to mention names of universities that I can make it real. Yeah. The department writes to the top and say, we need this person. But today you just go to the office and you have 5 people employed and sent to you. Whether you need them or not, it's from the top. You don't have a choice.
Prof, this employment thing you're talking about.
Exactly, I was going to speak
I had experience. I did my NYC at Securities and Exchange Commission in the legal department. About 1 month towards the end of my NYC, I approached my boss. I wouldn't want to mention his name. Very hot from the university, best graduating student, first class from the Nigerian Law School. I'm hoping that I have all it takes. Did very well, served excellently. I said, sir, please, what are my chances of being returned here? The man looked up at the ceiling and did like this. Oscar, the only way we can return you here is that if you have a relative who is a politician.
Oh my goodness.
And when I mean politician, it is not a local government chairman. It has to be either a minister or a senator who will recommend you. That was what he told me.
Sad reality. You see,
that's
your life experience. And do you know how many people out there, Nigerians, that have been through that?
And I have never been able to secure employment in any government institution. I never worked for any government institution. All the places I worked in Nigeria were private institutions. In the law firm, in the banks, and so on. But that's the story for another day. Let me take on what you said. The quality of leaders we have. The system that keep throwing them up.
Sorry, Oscar, before you go to that, so that we also, again, to balance the story, we undoubtedly, leadership has got a major role to play, but I'm going to just try to play the devil's advocate a little bit. What about the office of the citizen? We've got our own role. I know that, yes, the leadership starts and ends everything and all of, but there is a part. Again, that takes me to this moral decadence, this everyday thing that our younger people consume. Because when you listen to something for so long, it will begin to become your reality. People are in the internet to watch Nyash, to watch, what do you call it, to twerk, and to do all, just name it, everything that is negative. You remember one of the times in this podcast, I said something. I said, soon, doing the right thing will begin to get outdated.
Yeah.
People are beginning to look at you that is doing, like we're discussing intellectual discussions now. We're talking about how Nigeria can get better and even how the world can be a better place. But I can tell you, the ones that will get the views will be those ones that are either dancing or saying things that are negative. We know what YC said about Ludo uprising and how the whole world went gaga.
Okay.
It's just cruise.
It's a
And
system.
anything that's related to sex.
Sex is one of the oldest business. I don't even want to go to. You see why I'm being careful about the whole sex parties. That's one of the oldest business, even from Bible.
The whole thing is a system. It's not individuals. The system will put individuals in check. If you start a good system today, there will still be normal queuing in Nigeria. The moral decadence, the values will come back. Let me tell you, even in the UK, even in the US, even in the developed countries that you think people are organized, the queue and so on and so forth, it's because there is hope.
Well,
There is hope.
Yeah.
There's a system, a safeguarding system, something to fall back to, a loan facility to fall back to. There is a benefit to fall back to. If you remove benefits from the UK today, I'm telling you, if you go out there, they'll snatch your phone.
and consequences.
The same thing that
consequences.
happens, the same thing that happens in Lagos will happen to you here if you remove benefits.
Absolutely.
So this thing is a system, and what the system rewards. So the system is not going to reward a professor, but it's going to reward Pella.
Oh my God. He has called the name.
No,
No, that's why I feel free.
Okay, but maybe it's not going to reward a Professor Francis, but it's going to reward a Pella. So that you know I'm also calling it the way it is. So it is. We are not building systems in Nigeria. Rather, we are building people, and people are building empires. So when you build people and people build empire and you don't build systems, that is what we have.
Are you saying that some of these things are actually a distraction?
There are real distractions.
System.
Let us have systems. Let us have a system in
Bro,
place.
how can we build this system on a faulty foundation?
The foundation can still be put right.
How
We have to just start.
We have
And-
to put down for you to put the
Yeah,
foundation
sometimes
right.
you have to put down,
I'm
but
almost
sometimes-
sounding like Mazi Joko.
when
We need to go back to the drawing board.
I might have not been there at that time, but I learned that when Buhari's first tenure was, because there was an idea born with him, there was war against indiscipline and corruption. White also something
Yeah,
like that.
no,
And that
well,
people were forced to do the right things. There were queues, there was civility. They did not have to break anything. When I went to Cross River States for NYSC, nobody told me. After I finished my sachet of pure water, I put it in my pocket because I looked around and everywhere was sparkling clean. And a small girl told me, "Don't drop it down, no. Don't throw it down.
I witnessed Fashola Zone.
Don't throw it down." So you see,
True.
if the leaders lead by example and set up the system and they are checker, the truth is that, let's say, if you punish the evildoers and reward the good people, the system corrects itself. But
No,
somebody,
but you see, the problem I have is that the system that we put the good people is a corrupt system. And excuse me,
Incidentally, we're
I
all
was
waiting for
listening
the
to Pastor Sam Adeyemi. He made one analysis and said, "Do you think if you have 20 armed robbers in a place and they say we want to elect a leader, they will elect a reverend?" The answer is no. They will elect an armed robber.
because all of them are armed robbers.
Because all of them are armed robbers, and the armed robbers are the ones taking decision of who to elect. So if you have
That's deep.
a system,
the worst is when the armed robbers elect a DPO as their leader. They can never be caught. Never be punished. No, let's say they now elect a DPO.
so the question is that you are wanting to have good leaders elected by a corrupt system, by a corrupt society. How is that going to happen?
Which is society? Because every time we talk about these few people, add up everybody in Nigeria that we think is the problem of Nigeria, they are not up to 1 million, including the bandits, including all the Boko Haram.
No, there are more. Even Nigeria now, even people who are waiting to loot are more than people.
I was going to tell you that when you finish. I was going to tell you.
Okay. Even if they are up to 20 million, they are not up to 1/10.
Yeah.
You know, I laugh at our constitution because it starts with we the people. So what are the people doing? The youths, they are the people to rise up and say this education is not helping us. If you know education is scam, what can make it
What would be
better?
the alternative?
What would be the alternative? So we should start looking for solutions.
That solution will not come from the ordinary man of the society who doesn't know better. It's from the leadership.
Which means we're back to the same place. Leadership.
It's back to...
Okay, what would be my question around this? Yes, we've said the leadership, everything is on leadership. We've also agreed that the people have got their own responsibility. We also confirmed here that if we have 20 criminals and we're going to do election, we still hire one criminal. But you've said something here. They're all the people that are corrupt in Nigeria. If we want to look at politicians, for instance, they might not be up to 1 million. But he said it up apt by saying, even Nigerians that are waiting for the system to favor them, and immediately it starts favoring them, they will do what? They will switch and begin to support the corruption. Now, it takes me to a question somebody asked a few days ago on Instagram. The person said, you as a Nigerian, are you actually ready for the system to start working in Nigeria? Are we sure that we are ready? Because if the system starts working, you can't beat traffic and go home and sleep. Just like what you mentioned, there is reward in Europe and develop, but there is also sanction. There is accountability. If you beat traffic, nobody is going to chase you. They'll just send you something home. And then when you see it, and imagine your salary being £1,500, and then you use 2,000 to pay. Then nobody will tell you next time if you see traffic light. In fact, you will stop before the traffic light. Nobody will tell. So same thing. Are we as Nigerians ready for a system that will work? I know somebody will say when we get there to that bridge, somebody has even responded to me, when we get to that bridge, we'll cross. But first of all, let's take out the bad leaders. So how do we really go from here?
Let's start with consequences for action. And the people should push for it. If there's a scandal, if there's something wrong, let people face the consequences for their actions. The rest, we take that as a deterrent. But when there's no consequence for action and somebody who does wrong is celebrated, somebody who spends all his life burning the candle, goes to school and come back. In fact, the people who say education is a scam are more of those who didn't go to school. They are more happy to hear that somebody who go to school is coming to ask them for money.
Sorry, Tony, somebody said, if you see where people who are jobless or people who didn't go to school are celebrating that somebody who has gone to school doesn't have a job. If you see where they are discussing it, it's so passionate. They are so passionate. After all, in 5 years for university, how far?
Why should a politician go to beg why should a professor go to beg a politician to employ the son? Because you are bringing yourself that low. I think that when there's consequences for action and reward for good things, we'll begin to see little change. And like we said, the same people who will make sure this thing happen is the government. And let's not always blame the executive. The judiciary have their own. For someone to look at you in the eye and say, go to court.
Those ones have so...
Those days, if you want somebody to stop encroaching into your land, you
just tell him, I'll take you to court.
Meet in court. I'll take you to court. But today, go to court is like, go to court. Because there's a hope I have that if you go to court,
buying your way through and all of that.
So I think that both even the legislators that we feel are representing us, how are they representing us?
Are you sure they are representing you?
So the whole solution still boils down to education. If the people are educated, they will know their rights. And that is why they don't want to have the right kind of education. It still boils down to real education.
So, Prof, some want the right kind of education, some don't. If you go to the north, I'm sorry to say this, there are some people who want to use Boko Haram as their career. Some. I'm not saying all.
Again, I want to, as a child that was born and bred in the north, I would tell you that I might not totally.
No, I didn't say all.
No, I'm even, you see that even that little that you think are agreeing to do that or are vulnerable to that, they are actually very vulnerable with the kind of information they take in. Hardship, hunger.
Who is making them this vulnerable? They are leaders making them vulnerable. So they have decided that some part, they will make some part of them Boko Haram.
No, what I'm saying is that I wouldn't want a narrative where it will be that a northern child chose to be Boko Haram. 90% of the time, it is the environment where they find themselves. I'll give you this analysis. I did my NYC in a village where both human beings and animals put together in that community are not up to 5,000. I'm saying both human being and animal. I did 11 months and 3 weeks in that community. I didn't travel once for my entire NYC. See, I lived with this community in Lubo, in Yamaltu-Deba local government. They will know what I'm talking about. Vehicles come to that village once every week, only on Wednesdays. That's the only day we can go out of town. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to say this so that we can understand the vulnerability of a northern child.
But Chris, let me say this. If you are moving and somebody is drawing you back, would you say, okay, I have to reduce my speed to accommodate you?
That's because you are educated. That's because you are enlightened.
Yeah, so you can't keep driving me now and expect me to go at your pace and go at your speed. It's not acceptable.
If the person is hungry, that's, you know what? They are talking about two different people now.
We are talking about two different people. And the point I want to make is that their leaders want to keep them perpetually ignorant and perpetually.
You think they know?
No,
but they don't. Some of them don't know. Some of them don't know. No, I'm talking about the vulnerability.
If we have a society like Nigeria, we should have a balance. People talk about equality and equity, but not when it comes to things like universal education. Universal education, like even up to university, means it's a global stuff. It means if I study physics in Ghana, or I study physics in South Africa, or in India, or anywhere, it's supposed to be universal. So when you come to the Nigerian setting, I am not a proponent for all of these kind of lopsided things like educationally less developed people should the people's brain power is the same as the brain power in other places. To say, the JAMB cutoff mark for somebody in the north should be 90.
Good.
Why the cutoff mark should be
even the
for somebody
you are talking about, people from the east, they cut as high as 170 for them.
No.
Then people from the north, they will tell them if you score 13, if you score 10, and you want that people to still be together, believing and living in one country. My question, let me be direct. I have been beating around the bush. Do you think that should divide so that people can go and get their people in a better way?
If you said that, like I was discussing with you when we were driving down to this place, that maybe from the body language of Mr. President, he's trying to take us back to the regional system of government.
I heard that for the first time.
Now we have Niger, we have a South Development Commission, Southeast Development Commission, Southwest Development Commission, North Central Development Commission, Northwest.
Those things are still controlled by the federal government.
Good, I know, but it's like a prelude. What you do before you break, so that everybody should develop at their own pace. But this reliance on Abuja, everybody goes to Abuja to go and collect at the end of the month. It's not helpful, because if everybody is developing at their own pace, I will look at the resources I have and want to develop them.
And there will be healthy competition.
There will be healthy competition. But when you say everything you have, now there's gold in Zamfara, it belongs to Zamfara people. We see plane landing on dirty ground where there's no airport to pack resources. But the oil in Niger Delta belongs to the whole country. No. Let us still talk about every unit developing themselves.
Prof, you see this thing you have said, if you ask me, it's a full topic on its own.
Yeah.
It's Nigeria. You see, what people are discussing was federal character principle. What was the mind of the people who made those laws when it was made? Is it still valid as at today?
Obviously,
federal character principle does not make, in my opinion, does not make any sense.
I believe and I think that the various regions should be allowed to go and develop.
Yeah, because there's a twist to it. There's a twist to it.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
if you look at the current World Cup going on, Croatia is less than 5 million. That nearly beat Argentina yesterday. They are about 500,000. All those small countries doing very, very well in sports, in science, in technology, education, everything. But Nigeria, over 200 million people, and we can't do anything. I learned that the professional footballers in Nigeria, while the World Cup is going on, they're playing street football in Nigeria.
Yeah, you don't blame them because the system is bad.
Because the system is bad and those things are not put in place.
Our diversity should be our power.
It should be our strength. But
unfortunately, should be our strength because, for example, once you get the resources in one region, you can give those resources to another region in exchange for something else. It should be that
they're talking about ideal situation.
But now, even if you say, let us now split, it is when you split, you will discover that people will say Enugu is the headquarter of Southeast, and you hear that Ebonyi are slaves. When we split, that Oshun will say that Oyo is the real Yoruba, and this is not. But however, I think that for healthy competition, we should be able to develop at our own pace. Like you said, one region should not hold me back. when they begin to see what the other region is doing, they can now tell themselves and say, no, let us also, there'll be healthy competition.
Okay, in this topic in this part that you go now, let me tell you something. As somebody who also studied social sciences and has a legal background, the truth is, if you talk about people being feeling superior or superiority or inferiority complex, trust me, it is everywhere in this world. Do you know that in this UK, that people in England see Scottish people as inferior? Are you aware of that? It's everywhere in the world. If you go to America,
and the Scottish is trying to
and
get
they also feel exactly. They also you can see from the memorandums. I mean, from all the memorandum that they've been doing, they want to get off.
There is class distinction everywhere.
Exactly. I don't think dividing Nigeria, even though I'm not a strong supporter of it, but even if it happens, I don't think we should be worried about by the time the Southeast people go, they'll say Abakaliki people are. It's everywhere in the world. People, you are going to have that.
I understand that. Education really helps because from the kind of school we went to a school where you can find everybody from every background and we live together in peace.
Yeah.
Exchange students.
We did it, of course,
from the states, from all the states. I know that a school like, is it Barewa University, have produced 5 presidents and 20 governors. And when Yaradua, of beloved memory, one of the best Nigerian presidents we can have, got to power, he had a meeting with all his classmates. And they were from all parts of Nigeria. Because his school was a unified school. Not today where I know
classmates is even dying now. Your current president doesn't have a classmate.
Okay, I know of people who say remove our child from that school because some other poor people are attending that school.
Yeah.
So that kind of classes are not really helping the future generation. We should have an education where everybody feel inclusive, everybody belongs, everybody can come in. The child of nobody is with the child of somebody and they school together.
That's the only way that even in the future, all of you can say,
I'll call my classes.
When was the last time we talked about classmates in the Nigerian government? That was when Osinbajo was vice president. That was the last time anything like classmates gathered together.
The current ones we have.
They don't have classmates. Some of them either didn't go to school.
They don't have beginning.
In fact, I heard where one minister was trying to defend this president and he said something. That he's a genius, that those are the people that wrote WAEC from their house. He didn't go to any secondary school. He wrote WAEC from home, meaning he's a genius. The day I heard that and I cringed. I'm like, is this how we have...
Anyway, I think as we begin to wrap up, we have looked at the challenges, looked at the issues. What is the way forward? Because we can't just talk. We've touched so many things. The quality of teachers, facilities, the leadership, the followership. How do we start making things right so that we will be competitive?
For me, I think we should go back to education, the proper kind of education that the people need, which the leaders are afraid to give them because they feel if you give them, they will be free. Education liberalize someone. Education liberates someone and makes him a free soul, make him somebody who can be useful in the society. When we talk about going back to education, let education not receive less than 30% of the budget.
Should even be number one. If you
let education not receive less than 30% of the budget. Let the curriculum be changed. What we learn in school today does not prepare people for the world of work. It prepares them to have a paper certificate. It helps them to get hired and get fired. Yes, because they can garnish any CV the way you want to garnish it.
Now that ChatGPT can do it for you in less than 1 minute.
The kind of education we are looking for in the future should be the type that brings about critical thinking, that brings about problem solving, that brings about intelligence that is higher than artificial intelligence. The type of education we are talking about is the type that holds people to accountability. The type that can make a school child tell you, why do you drop this debt? There is a waste bin for you to drop there. It's not the type that protects the kids in the name of human rights. I know there are schools in Japan where the students wash their dishes, take care of their things, and clean everywhere, keep their environment clean.
No, it's confirmed that is their primary stage of education.
Good.
That's the only thing they go to do in
when we talk about education now, we should look at the quality of what we are giving and the empowerment that we are giving to somebody. It goes beyond literacy. It goes beyond numeracy. It goes beyond ability to read and write, but to be able to question the society and question the norms and say, this thing is right, this thing is wrong.
Challenge status quo.
So, and for that to happen, you talk about teachers, you talk about the curriculum, you talk about funding, you talk from all levels of education. We should be taking that very, very seriously. If that is really done, the society will change. That is what I believe. Then leadership should be held accountable. Not just responsible. If they are irresponsible, they should account
for their irresponsibility.
Now we have very good things that happen from the past government, where we have budget IT, where you can see whatever is in the budget. And we're hearing that budget is not implemented up to 10%. Who is being accounted? Who is held accountable? Nobody. So there should be accountability. The people should know. People should be able to ask and know. Until we get to a point where they will have to call you and say, Chris, it's the turn of our people. We have asked everybody that don't want to go, please come and go and represent us. That's when Nigeria will be good. But as far as it is still lucrative, and somebody who has all the experience has become a counselor in the US for 15 years, goes back home to be a local government chairman, they look him in the eye and say, we have been waiting for our turn.
and now you just come yesterday.
That if you don't want to die, go back to wherever you are coming from. Yeah. He has what it takes, but he's not given the chance. Where is merit? It's not about godfatherism, it's not about that. So these things should be what we should put in the fore. And I think it will take a long while, but I think we can get there. A step in the right direction is better than no step at all.
Oh, that takes me to the question of how long do you think this can be done? I'm asking this question. Do you think anybody, any leader in Nigeria needs 8 years, 10 years?
No,
or
you don't need
any number of years to change Nigeria?
If you have the people behind you, you don't need more than 3 years to make remarkable changes. And please, don't come with manifesto of many things. Focus on one thing and do it. If you focus on education, you do it, you move on. Another person may come and focus on electricity, fix it and move ahead. Another person will come, but let security be the main thing that is there. Most of this insecurity is still because of lack of education.
Knowledge, yeah. Education.
Not just knowledge.
Education, yeah.
Thank you guys, and it's been very exciting, engaging, and thought-provoking. I don't think we've exhausted what we wanted to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about.
There are lots to talk about: education in Nigeria, leadership, followership, the rising trend of people not, learning the right things, mentoring of young ones, our politicians, the legislature, the judiciary, lots of things to talk about. But I want to make a request from you, Prof. Please make a promise publicly to our followers that you come again for us to continue where we stop.
Well, I see this as my own responsibility, as my own contribution to the nation and to nation building. So anytime I'm called upon, even at short time, I will try to make myself.
Thank you so much. We will hold you accountable.
Thank you very much for that commitment.
Chris, thank you so much once again. It's always engaging and exciting to have you in the studio. And for all our colleagues at the back, the technical crew, those supporting us, the production team, and very importantly, our followers, our subscribers, our viewers, our critics, our supporters, our cheerleaders. Thank you so much for what you do for us. If there is anything you want us to talk about, just put it in the comment section. We are on YouTube, we are on Facebook, we are on TikTok, we are on Instagram, across all platforms. Please put it forward there, criticize us, encourage us, support us, and we'll pick that up and continue to bring you the experts that would deal with topics that you want us to talk about. From us here in the studio, a very good evening. Thank you so much, and see you in the next episode.
All right, thank you very much, guys, and thank you, Prince.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. There's a lot to